Right. Okay. Good afternoon, our members of the council and also our members and ladies and gentlemen, and our guest speaker today, Mr. Kaushika Jalat. First of all, let me apologize for the slight delay that occurred, but that always happens, I suppose, in this sort of event. But we've not had this earlier, so I do hope that you were not inconvenienced by that. So let me go straight to the topic, because today CMA Sri Lanka, the National Professional Management Accounting Body in Sri Lanka, is looking at this topic of unlocking the power of AI or artificial intelligence for accounting and finance professionals. If you really go through this, you'll find that today the syllabus of the CMA has been newly launched with the theme of the developing future accountants. And one of the key areas is to make them digitally enabled. And now I think we are going a step further with AI coming in. So to do the introduction I will do, because we don't have much time. We wasted a little time on this, but we have a very eminent speaker. In fact, he was last present at our conference, and when we looked at the markings that were given to all the speakers, Kaushika, I must congratulate you. You came on top of it. You know, your presentation was one of the best. So that's what I thought, that I spoke to you also to see whether we might be able to get another opportunity where you will be able to address our members. So he is really one of the more eminent professionals in the IT, AI, and of course digital field, and has had a very good exposure in the industry. And one of the most important things is that he is currently, I think, one of the youngest board members of CPA Australia. So I must also thank our council member and our advisory council member, Professor Ho Yu Ki, who is, I think, in touch with Mr. Kaushika, for introducing him. And then he was in Sri Lanka and we were able to meet with him. And thereafter, we were able to arrange a close link. So I'm very happy that you are having very strong links with our mother country, and you are also interested to develop these capabilities, especially on the digitalization, on the artificial intelligence, which I think you will tell us as to how that will really maybe perform and also maybe transform Sri Lanka, because even now the new government has thought of bringing in digital, and they've also named one of the leading people in the digital area, Dr. Hans Vijayasuriya. He was the managing director of Dialogue, and who's supposed to take over that field and maybe go into the digital transformation. So with those introductions, Mr. Kaushika, I will hand over to you, and maybe that after your address, we'll have a Q&A where our participants can send their questions on the Q&A so that we can take it up and discuss. So over to you, Kaushik.
Thanks, and good afternoon for everyone who's on the webinar today. I'll step through. I'll just give a quick introduction of myself, and then we'll jump into some of the content. My goal today is very much to give you some practical tools that you can take on for yourself in your everyday life as well, as accountants, as finance professionals, but also to give you an idea of what's coming next, so you're prepared over the next 3 to 5 years, especially with the world changing so fast and a lot of countries adopting AI as embedded into their business processes, so that you have a proper understanding of where the world is going as well. So to get started, I'll just share my screen. I'll just make sure that everyone can see this as well. You should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Perfect.
Right.
So I, as Professor Waterwell said, serve in the board of CPA Australia as a director, but I also, my my day job effectively is working as an enterprise solutions consultant for Oracle. Oracle's a global multinational corporation that does everything to do with technology, everything from hardware to database to software to applications. So because of that role, I get to see what happens, especially across the Northern America region, the European region, and also the Australia, New Zealand region around AI and what's being introduced, what's actually part and parcel of software that companies globally use, so that I'm able to then bring that knowledge to you and show you what the next thing that will be coming up is. I did this, I showed this at the CMA conference as well, but I think because we have a large audience, this is an anecdote that I use to explain why it's important to understand where AI fits in and how not getting the right answer is not always the AI's fault. It really comes down to what you see out of it as well. So I asked a question from DALI, which is the chat GPT for pictures, effectively, in put out by OpenAI, which is basically you can put in any prompt of text and it gives you a picture. And I asked the question at the CMA conference, or just before the CMA conference, give me a picture of a Sri Lankan accountant that's confused by AI. And this is the picture that I got. Now, clearly, there's a few things that stand out. Number one, that's not a Sri Lankan accountant. So clearly the prompt that I have given wasn't clear enough. So I had to stress, no, this is incorrect. You need to give me a picture of a Sri Lankan accountant. And so the next picture I got was this. Now that's also not correct. So I had to feed it even more prompts to go, the attire should match what a Sri Lankan would wear. It is inaccurate. Get rid of the sari, give more prompts into it. And then this is what I got. Now, at the end, you can still see, even then, if you look closely, that flag is not accurate. Now, the point here is to understand that, yes, AI is always not going to be accurate, but it might not always be the AI's fault. Because if I had given enough of a structured prompt at the very beginning, I would have got the third picture instead of the first picture to begin with. So it's a case of refining. It's a case of making your prompts better and better and getting that skill into your system as well, so that you can make more use out of AI. Now, I'll explain a little more about what AI can do for you in a minute. But really, let's start at the point of confusion as well. Now, before we go there, I'll actually open this up to a bit of a questionnaire as well. What I want to do first is, if everyone can, you should still be able to see my screen. If you can jump on to this Menti web link, maybe I'll try and put this in the chat as well so you can access it easily. The goal is to do a quick survey and find out from everyone so that this is a bit more interactive and you're not just listening to me the whole time. Feel free to just put this in. I think I can only put it in the chat, but you should be able to access the link itself. If not, let's see whether I can put it straight in the chat as well. Now I seem to be only be able to share it with the panelists and the host. You should be able to jump onto that, either use the QR code, or if you just go to menti.com and use the code 6333309, we'll do a quick survey because I want to find out from everyone on the call what you think about AI today before I start answering. Before I start speaking about AI, it's good to get a gauge of what the current state of what you see today is like. So why don't we jump there, see whether you can access it as well. And you should see a screen that looks something like this. You should see a question that comes up something like this, which says, the first question is, we'll take a minute. It'll ask you a quick question about, do you use AI tools in your day-to-day life? And so if you could just answer as yes, maybe, yes every day, yes once or twice a week, or no, we can use that as a starting point. What I'll do while that's happening in the background is start sharing some of the results that I'm seeing live as well. So you get to see what everyone's answering as well. And the whole goal of doing this is to give you a picture of what everyone thinks as well. So we've got about 50 responses already, so that's good. I'll keep it open just for a little while longer because we have quite a bit of stuff to kind of show you as well. Let's see. All right, I'll start showing the results with you as well. So there we go. Should be able to see that now. Let's see what the results are like. All right. Oh, there you go. So half and half. Yes, every day. Yes, once or twice a week. And then no as well. So that's fine. Not very indifferent either. That no bucket will climb as we go along as well. Usually it's a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split. We've got about 200 people on, so there'll be more coming up as well. But the goal of this is to show it's going to be different across different cohorts as well. There'll be people who use it on a daily basis. There'll be people who use it once or twice a week, and there'll be people who don't use it on a daily basis. The goal here is to show you, for those who use every day, the goal for them is to show you the governance capabilities you should be tapping into to control what you have. The ones who use once or twice a week, the goal is to show you what you should be wary of, but also how you can adopt more and more use. For the ones who don't use it at all, the goal is to introduce some capabilities because inevitably the world is moving towards adopting more and more AI for everyday functions. What we'll do now is jump to the next question. You should be able to see that now. What are the typical AI tools that you use? And let me see whether you should be able to see that question now. And feel free to put some comments in as well, and we'll start sharing. I'll start sharing the responses at the same in live as well, so people can see what others are responding as well. Start to see, it's the usual stuff that stands out. ChatGPT will be the main one that stands out. Perplexity, there'll be a few others. Power BI, that's an interesting one. Some of these are standalone GPTs. So some Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, these are things that you can use on your day-to-day life, not just as an accountant, but even in your to improve your productivity as well. Some of the others like Snowflake, Power BI, those are data visualization tools which have AI capabilities built in it. So is it an AI tool? No. Is it a data visualization tool with AI embedded in it? Yes. So we'll show you what I want to show is a couple of use cases there as well. So it doesn't matter what the tool is, you start to think about the ways in which you use it. And the point of putting this slide up and showing you, as the responses grow, some stand out, some like ChatGPT stand out, but there are others that could just be capabilities built into a broader tool. And so for those tools, things like Claude, even things like Power BI, things like any data visualization tool for that matter, the important thing is to understand that the use cases will grow more and more. So you need to be on top of the use cases, the opportunities to use AI. All right, I might stop that question and move on to the next one. And there's a reason why I'm going through all of these questions. It's because it then feeds to me what type of presentation I should do, or it also gives you an idea of what everyone's thinking. It's important to understand what everyone feels about AI as well. So in terms of what its impact is to your profession. So you can drag and drop here to say whether you feel nervous, whether you feel excited, whether you feel worried, overwhelmed, or confused. Feel free to put your answers here as well. You can drag and drop more than one as well and give a list of responses. And the whole goal of doing this, once again, is So everyone in the call, not just me, but everyone in the call gets an idea of what everyone else is thinking about this. We have 270, 280 odd participants here. So that's a lot of opinions. So we'll start with that one as well. If anyone's still looking to join, just keep in mind menti.com, and you can use that code and you can participate in this as well. All right. We've got about 50 responses, so that's a healthy sample to start with. So let's start sharing. Let's see where everyone's standing. All right, so that's good. Usually when we have this kind of survey with businesses, even, so I live in Melbourne, Australia, but even here, excited is not always what comes up top. Overwhelmed tends to be what comes up top a lot. Confused sometimes as well. But it's really good to see that you, as a cohort, feel excited about it. Because in most cases, it's very difficult to feel excited when you see AI being used more and more within a profession to automate things. The standard response is to be afraid of it. It's good to see that, but also it's not surprising that the immediate second response is confused, because there's so much. There's so much happening on a regular basis all the time. So this is not surprising at all. But it's a very good sign that people are looking to adopt more. The goal for those who are excited, once again, is to contain that excitement in a way that you can put in the right guardrails in place so that you don't cause any issues for the businesses that you work in. For everyone else, those who are confused, overwhelmed, worried, or nervous, for them, the goal is, how do you get to the point of feeling excited? How do you get to the point of feeling like the AI tools available to you can actually achieve something without it impacting your business? All right. So I think I've got one last question. We'll jump to that. Does your business or does the company you work for have an AI policy? Now, that's a very important question, because this will drive some of the talking points we'll talk through today, because that's an area that the world doesn't have a lot of laws around still. And as accountants, as people of integrity, as a profession that the world looks for, looks at in terms of integrity, it's very important that we are part of the dialogue. So I'll leave this open for a minute as well. The responses are flying in pretty quickly, to see whether businesses that you work in, whether they have their own AI policy as well. We've got about 75 responses, so that's a healthy sample. Let's have a look at that. All right. Now, there we go. So that's dangerous. The fact that there's a huge majority that is either no or unsure is cause for concern. And so as an accountant within your organization, these are the type, or as a finance professional within your respective organizations, this should be something that you should start to question as well. Because if you look at the accounting profession, it stands for integrity. It stands for as the subject matter expert for accounting, yes, but it's also who people look from a point of view of trust. If you want to trust a professional within a business, you trust the accountant, because the numbers will speak for themselves always. And so the strategic decision making will always be driven by the reports that you put forward as a financial accountant, as a management accountant, as a cost accountant, wherever you might sit. So if you were to ask the question, have we factored in the financial impacts of not having an AI policy paired with what are our risk management structures around AI? Some people will listen. People will ask, why are you asking that question? And then, so what we'll go through today as a presentation will give you some of those talking points that you should consider and you should present to your organizations as food for thought, because this is what the rest of the world is doing. And it's important to understand that. All right, so that's hopefully that was a bit of an eye-opener for everyone on the call as well about where everyone else is at, because it's not every day we get to have a nice sample like this to talk through as well. If I go back to my slides and we look at, why is there that kind of confusion that you saw, or why is there, that nervousness? It's usually around the concept of shadow AI. So there's hallucinations, you're not sure about what you get as responses. Even the pictures that I showed you was to the same effect. There's a lot of hype, but is there actually delivered value out of that hype? That's a very important question to ask yourself as well. And then there's another area of data quality and reusability of data. Is AI useful if the data is not useful? And then where is the level of transparency? When we talk about generative AI, for example, there's a concept of a black box. And that's basically, we don't know how the answers are being designed. And that's cause for concern. And people feel worried about whether they can actually trust the responses coming through. Now, along with that is the pace of upskilling that is required, data security concerns, and the gaps in AI governance. And that last question that I put up pretty much makes that obvious, that if there is no AI policy, then there's very little AI governance taking place. All of that is important, but keep in mind, AI isn't new. We have been working with AI for a very long time. Since the 1940s, since World War II, AI has been part and parcel of the global ecosystem. The Enigma machine, which helped end World War II, was invented by the father of AI, and then from Alan Turing. And then since then, a chatbot was invented in 1964. Deep Blue was an AI that beat a chess legend in 97. GPTs have existed since 2020, but it's only taking off since 2023 when the concept of a GPT was democratized. And what that means is now it's available for anyone to use for free. But along with that comes certain risks that you should be aware of as well. So up until around the 2008 mark, there wasn't really an ability for the everyday person, for the general public, to tap into AI at the level that it is available now. I mean, today, if you use Apple Maps or Google Maps to drive somewhere, you're using AI. That's the level of embeddedness AI has within the ecosystem. But if you look at AI from the context of productivity, efficiency, your everyday life, that is where the GPTs really play a big part. Global observations around AI adoption are quite crucial to understand as well. Now, this was a survey done by Deloitte that called out what are the skills that are rising in value. And it's important to understand that they grouped this as human-centered skills and technology-centered skills. And it's important to understand it's not always about what IT knowledge you have. It's about the technology-centered skills, yes, the light green, but it's also important to understand what human-centered skills need to be paired with it. Because without that, AI is just a tool that will continually give out the wrong answer. So you need to know data analysis as a skill, and you need to know how that fits in with AI, but you also need to be able to think critically and have creativity. 62% of the skills rising in value, what people valued at 62% is critical thinking. Prompt engineering is very important as well. So I'll step through a couple of key things around what you need to be aware of, especially when you use GPTs and engineering prompts that you put into the GPT. Knowing how to research for information, knowing how to be creative in using a GPT or in using AI, knowing, flexibility, having the flexibility and resilience to try different things. All of that is more important than software engineering or coding. And that's saying something, because that means the market understands that you can take someone with these combinations of human-centered skills and technology-centered skills and teach them the additional things that they need to know. Case in point, where I work now, I'm a CPA, I'm an accountant that is working in finance transformations for a technology corporation. I don't have an IT background. But the market recognizes that you need a person from a certain caliber, from a certain background and certain profession, incorporate them into a technology world, and then look at transformation. It's the one thing we take for granted as accountants is our fundamentals. It's very difficult for an IT professional to understand debits and credits out of nowhere. But for an accountant, that's your bread and butter. You know the financial statements, you know your debits and credits, you know how to put together a cash flow. Those kinds of concepts, when it comes to a world of technology transformations, finance transformations, that information is actually quite valuable. And we don't realize that because we take it for granted, because that's what we do every day. So now it's a case of how do you pair that data analysis. Now it's a case of how do you pair that with critical thinking and creativity. All right, now let's keep moving. Now, the main thing to think of, to remember, especially with AI, are the building blocks that are what I call the building blocks of AI. So you'll use AI through an application, something like a ChatGPT, something like a Gemini, something like even the other tools that was called out in that slide that everyone put in. But in order for you to use that, you need data. So if you think about AI, they're all built on large language models, especially generative AI, correct myself, generative AI tools are built on large language models. And those large language models use huge amounts of data. Without that data, the large language model is useless. It can't train on anything else. And without the application sitting on top of it, for the application sitting on top of it to be used well, you need data, and that data needs to be of a certain quality. And then you have the infrastructure that sits beneath it. Now, out of these three things, the one infrastructure, it's very difficult for us to control in our day-to-day life. I mean, a business needs to have infrastructure put in place. A country needs to have infrastructure put in place. That's something out of our control. The applications, the more and more democratized it gets, you will get access to more and more applications available in the ecosystem. So there are hundreds and hundreds of GPTs that you can use when you go into the OpenAI website. So applications exists a lot as well. But do you have control over those applications? The everyday accountant probably doesn't, unless you're good at building your own GPTs, which we will touch on as well. The application layer might be a little above you as well. So the data becomes crucial. So the reason why I'm highlighting that is, as an accountant now, your world will start revolving more and more around the data. Everything you prepare on an Excel spreadsheet, everything you do to bring different sources of data together, everything you do in building an Excel model, everything you do around Python, or anything you do where the data is crucial is absolutely imperative. And you as the accountant, or you as the finance professional, you have something that the IT professional doesn't have. And that is the knowledge of the financial concepts and the accounting concepts that can be applied to the data. And so if you now look at ways in cleansing the data and maintaining the data in a way that makes sense for that application layer to use, then you come out being able to use generative AI tools much better. It doesn't have to be just generative AI. It could be what we call traditional AI as well, but the data is absolutely fundamental. The more control you have over your data, the more you can manage your data to be clean, where it's less manipulation every single time you touch an Excel spreadsheet. The more it's built around a model, you'll be able to be successful in using AI efficiently. Otherwise, you can still use it, but it might not always get you the answer that you're looking for. And it's important to understand when we talk about AI. Now, as I said, AI has existed since World War II. So then you need to understand, okay, what's machine learning, what's deep learning, and then what's that generative AI as a subsection, and how does that help you? Information on this you can find over the internet anywhere, but it's important to understand that generative AI is just a subset. So when we talk about ChatGPT, we're talking about Gen AI, which is a subset of deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, which is a subset of artificial intelligence. The importance of understanding that is, as an accountant, you will be able to tap into use cases, examples of how to use AI at every layer. You can group the top three almost as traditional AI. Generative AI is just the new thing that's out there, but don't forget that there's plenty of use cases for accountants, especially around the traditional AI front. The reason why, once again, there hasn't been as much focus on it in the past is because it hasn't been as democratized as it is now. So in other words, you can use generative AI now, you can use GPTs now to enable some of these use cases that previously was out of your grasp. Now, before we jump into the actual AI examples, I'm going to spend a minute on 8 principles for safe, effective, and responsible AI use. I asked that question before about AI policy and who has what's the level of AI policies within each organization. And that was the answer that we got. So this is directly to address that question. Because if you ask your business, do we have an AI policy? And the answer is no, then your next question, or if they then say, what are we going to do about it? Well, the answer to that is those 8 principles. It doesn't have to be a 100-page document. It could be just 2 pages, but you need, as a business, as an accountant, as a finance professional, as a reputed member of your organization, you have a responsibility to highlight this, which is, and this was put together by the University of Technology, Sydney's Human Technology Institute and the Australian Institute of Company Directors. The important bit is to understand you can break this into pillars. There's 8 principles for safe, effective, and responsible AI use, starting with the roles and responsibilities. You need to know who is accountable for decision-making around AI, who will buy, who will procure, who will develop and use AI, because keep in mind, there's a lot of AI tools that are free, that are dangerous if there's no data protection around it, but there's a lot of AI tools that you can pay for, and there's a lot of guardrails built around it. So then in that case, the question for the business is who's going to procure it? Whose budget is it coming out of? How do we develop it and how do we use it? Then the question around ensuring AI risks and opportunities are made part of the decision making. Every decision you make at a management level should factor in whether there's an AI risk attached to it, whether there's a data privacy risk attached to it, because the way you make the decision might be influenced by AI. People, skills, and culture is very much important. Assessing the skills, capabilities, and training, the potential for AI skills, the culture, the workforce, how that will then change according to the skills that you introduce. And then from a director point of view, from a management point of view, how do you govern this? What tools do you bring in? What tools do you tell your organization not to use? And then policies and strategies around that. In the same way, you tell your, if you work within a company and within an organization and they give you a laptop to use, they give certain rules around what you use that laptop for. AI should be the same thing. If they give you a work phone, a company phone, it's the equivalent of that to have an AI tool within your laptop. So what can you use it for? What data are you allowed to put into those AI tools? What data should you not put into those AI tools? Do you understand the cybersecurity concerns around it? Those are all guardrails that a company should put in place. The other 4 is around practice, process, and controls. So you need to have a consistent flow of practices. Basically, the accounting department can't use a different set of can't have a different set of processes and controls to the HR department or the let's say the operations department. They need to all have the same processes when it comes to AI. What they use, how they use it, and when they use it. Same things apply to risk associated with AI as well. The supporting infrastructure is less in your control, but it's important for the company to have a set of guidelines around it. Engaging stakeholders, it's another area where you really need to consider AI. So, for example, do you know if your suppliers and your customers are using AI with your data in it? You might not know that. So you need to clarify that. In the same way, if you use AI with your customers' data and they're not aware of it, especially if it's an international customer, especially if it's a customer from another country, then that has serious ramifications, has serious impacts because they don't want their data to be shared on AI platforms. And then there's the monitoring, reporting, and evaluation that needs to be built in as well to seek. And if this is outside your realm of control, then you should definitely seek internal and external assurance as well. So those are 8 principles that every business should adopt, and therefore every accountant, every finance professional should adopt when they use AI as well. It's important to understand that these 8 principles are almost guardrails you put in place so that then you can use AI in everyday life. Now, what I'll do now is start talking about some of the everyday use cases that we see, and show you AI in use from different points of view. And I don't mean just from a ChatGPT point of view, I mean from enterprise resource planning point of views as well. So what we call finance systems or ERPs, how is AI built into those tools? How is AI used by large scale businesses like FedEx or DHL or major conglomerates like Coca-Cola? How do they use AI from an accounting lens, from a finance lens? What does that really mean? To get to that, we need to understand that there's, as I said, 2 concepts of AI. Traditional AI, which focuses on detecting patterns, classifying data, and making predictions, and then generative AI. So it's kind of like the left brain and the right brain. The left brain focuses on detecting patterns, classifying data, and based on that data, making predictions, whereas generative AI focuses on creativity. It focuses on creating something new. It can recognize complex patterns based on massive data sets and then actually create something new. But that's where the black box concept really comes in, because it's so complex and it's continuously thinking and its compute strength is so powerful, we don't always understand how it came up with that new idea. We don't know how it came up with that new concept. So that's where you need to be a little careful with generative AI. Now, will it lead to amazing ideas? Will it lead to amazing processes or outcomes for you? Absolutely. But you need to be careful of the use cases and take almost a modular approach on how you adopt these AI tools. So let's start with a few everyday AI use cases. So the things that you can use as accountants, as businesses, as finance professionals every single day. One of those uses is note-taking. So something that we see very commonly used now is these tools like Otter AI or Fireflies AI, which basically sits as part of your Zoom meeting, sits as part of your Teams meeting. And you have your meeting just like a regular conversation. But at the end of the meeting, you get a full script of everything that was discussed. So you don't, now the benefit of that is you spend the full time with your client, with your manager, with your supervisor, with your stakeholder, paying attention to what they're saying. You actually have a proper conversation instead of taking notes while they're talking. Instead, the notes will come to you packaged and increasingly it's getting better and better and better at understanding everything that's being said as well. Now, it's important to recognize not everyone is okay with your notes being taken. So that is where you need to have certain skills, and this is where the policies come in. At the very beginning of a meeting, you need to actually disclose, Mr. Customer, Mr. Stakeholder, are you happy if I use Otter AI or Fireflies AI to take notes at this meeting? If they say yes, continue. If they say no, that's not an option. These are the little things these are those soft skills. These are those things that you have to factor in. The human-centered skills you need to factor in. Because without that, the AI, every time you start the Zoom call, it's going to start taking notes. Case in point, I've been in calls with clients where the Zoom call ends and immediately a second Zoom call begins, and someone else's note-taking machine just starts taking notes. Now that's bad because this is now private conversations regarding one client getting recorded in a second client's note-taking machine. So that causes a lot of privacy concerns. So in those kinds of scenarios, you need to be very clear about what your policy is. Now, I work in a company that says absolutely no, do not use notes because it's that you are working with too many clients across too many countries. Don't use because that's the starting point, right? But your situation might be different. And so you might want to use note-taking for AI, note-taking AI for Zoom meetings, and that's okay. A second option, an everyday use case, and this is, mind you, this is not just for accountants, this is for anyone, but the use cases will apply clearly for accountants and finance professionals. I'll talk about the third point first. You can build your own GPTs in ChatGPT-4 as well. And I'll show you one I built just this afternoon, just to prove a point, just to show how easy it is to do something like that. Everyday GPTs like Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, you have access to it every single day, but you have to be very careful about the data you put into it. Because if it's the free version, they are using your data to train the large language model that sits in the US or that sits wherever that large language model is based. If you are using customer data, stakeholder data, that is dangerous because number one, you don't know whether it will hallucinate. Number two, you don't have permission for their data to be fed into a large language model. The EU, the European Union has already issued, laws around this. The Australia, New Zealand region is catching up pretty fast. So even if your country doesn't have the rules, so within Sri Lanka, if we don't have any rules around this, the moment you start working with an international business, you need to seriously start considering it. I'll show you a couple of quick use cases of everyday GPT use. And one of them, I use ChatGPT. That doesn't mean you have to be restricted in how you use it in your day-to-day. Now, here's a way I use ChatGPT every single day. I have a dog. I asked the GPT on my phone, what type of dog is this? And it actually took the picture, it looked at the picture and gave me an accurate description of what type of dog it is. This is a mixed breed dog. It's a terrier or a collie. Here's the information, what I'm basing it on. Now, when you look at, this is not the free version of ChatGPT. This is the paid version of ChatGPT, which is up to date, which is feeding off of real-time information. And along with it comes a certain level of compute power. So I use it on my day-to-day life as well. I've got a couple of plants around the house. If I see a plant dying, I ask the question, this is the plant, and I'm giving it a prompt now. I'm saying, you are a plant expert providing advice on taking care of plants at home. What type of plant is this and how should I best take care of it? And it's giving me step-by-step instructions on how to take care of this plant. The reason why I'm showing you this is if you apply this to your everyday life, you'll start to see the use cases that you can apply within the accounting sphere as well. Another, quick example to boost your productivity. If you're posting something on LinkedIn, I literally took a picture of an event that I was at along with the event details and asked it to just write a LinkedIn post. And it created this post for me. And that's what I'll then post on LinkedIn. So I didn't have to spend time worrying about what I have to say. This was a 30 seconds exercise. And I have a post that I'll put up on LinkedIn. These are everyday uses. And does it help you as an accountant? Probably not. But does it help you as a finance professional, as someone saving time in your day-to-day life? Absolutely. Now let's look at a specific use case that I applied from the CMA conference. Now, I spoke at the CMA conference and there was a YouTube recording of it. Now, and the reason why I'm showing you this is how this tool can really help you save time more than anything else. Professor Vadavala asked me to put together a paper on what I spoke about at the conference. I literally went to the YouTube clip or the YouTube video that they had recorded and fed it to ChatGPT and said, summarize the lecture content from timestamp 26 to 55 and provide it with approximately 1,400 words. And it told me it can't actually do that because the GPT cannot directly access this content from a YouTube video based on the URL alone. So there's privacy restrictions around that. But it also then told me, here's how you can get around it. If you give the transcript, you can actually paste it here and I'll summarize it for you. So then what I did, you can see in the bottom of the video, there's an actual transcript. YouTube is translating what I'm saying. So I copied that whole transcript, fed it to ChatGPT, and it gave me a very nicely written essay that I could then send to Professor Vadavala. And so the paper that I provided was actually not a paper that I wrote. It is a paper that ChatGPT wrote for me based on what I said. Now, at the end of it, I still have to review it. I still need to make sure everything that's said in it is accurate. And I actually said that. But the concept here is I'm at the start of the process. I'm at the end of the process. I am the human in that loop. And within that loop, and this is a concept within AI, is you need to always, if you're using it well, be the human in the loop. And if you are the human in the loop, you feed it the correct prompt, it gives you the correct response, and you double check to make sure that the outcome you receive is in line. Now, we do have quite a few questions, I think, and a few hands up as well. I haven't gone into the accounting specific use cases yet, but should I keep going, Professor Vatavalla? What do you think? Or should I take
Yeah, we'll go and take it at the end. Otherwise, it can get
Oh.
disturbed.
No worries. So those were some everyday use cases that I wanted to show. Now, the other thing, that was where we get into AI, the traditional AI in accounting. And there are plenty of use cases that are available already. Everything from invoice and purchase order line matching to predictive cash forecasting to natural language analytics. These are all use cases that exist in other countries within businesses already, within finance systems, within your ERP system, within your finance applications, within your data visualization tools. These are all the use cases that exist. Now, this is where you need to start thinking about how to apply the AI as opposed to what the tool is, because a lot of tools can do the same thing. So now it's a case of understanding what the benefits are for you. So if you look at things like dynamic discounting, how do you use AI to make suggestions about what suppliers you can gain discounting benefits from? So as Oracle, as my day job with Oracle, like we have software that's catering just to that purpose. But what that means is for our businesses, for our clients, these businesses will take that software, they will apply it to their current base of suppliers, their accounts payable balance, see where they can gain discounting benefits, looking at all of their different global suppliers that are there. And the savings they'll make from that discount more than pays off for the software that they purchased. So for them, the financial benefit is there just in that one use case. When you look at things like cash forecasting, that's becoming more and more important, especially with global geopolitics playing a part as well. Cash flow tends to drive a lot of behavior. And so how do you have a predictive cash flow forecast? Those are important things. Now, before we jump into those very technical use cases, let's look at ChatGPT. What could be a use case using ChatGPT in of itself for an accountant? Let me just share my screen now and show you my ChatGPT that I have, right? So I have the paid version of ChatGPT. Now, because I have the paid version, I'm able to build my own GPTs. And so one GPT that I just built today is called the IFRS Sustainability Standard Expert. So IFRS has recently released 2 sustainability standards, IFRS S1 and S2. So you can download these standards online. But when you download these standards, let me show you what those standards look like. Unless you are a fan of reading accounting standards, or unless you have the time in the day to read accounting standards and understand it, or you have the ability to hire someone to do that for you in terms of a consultant, those standards are quite lengthy, quite long, very difficult to understand. And it takes a lot of time. So let me just share my screen. You should be able to see this now. There you go. So these are those standards, right? So you have all of these documents that you need to read to understand, what's the requirement, what are the disclosure requirements. If you work with an international business, now all of this comes into play. Or, as things move on, as you work with international suppliers, international customers, they'll start asking you questions around these standards. So for example, there's scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 reporting requirements. If you go into scope 3 reporting requirements, no matter what country you reside in, if your customers ask for that information and you're the supplier, you need to provide it. And so that becomes, that plays a bit of a part. So what did I do? I took all of those standards, all of those PDFs, and just loaded it into my new GPT that I created. And you can, so this is what you're seeing is the back end of a GPT that you will create in ChatGPT, where you can create and configure a GPT that does things that you ask it to do. So for example, this is an IFRS sustainability standard expert who will interpret and apply IFRS sustainability standards to business scenarios and requirements. Now, I can give it instructions on what it needs to do. I can even give it instructions on the tone that it needs to take in responding to things. Keep the tone formal but friendly. The GPT is an IFRS expert and interprets and applies IFRS sustainability standards. GPT also provides reference articles sourced from the internet. And so I'm giving it instructions so that I get the most value out of it. Now, along with that, I've uploaded all of the standards into it. And here, now this is the most important bit. You can give it the ability to browse the internet. You can give it the ability to create images. You can also have an additional setting of either choosing to let it train the large language model that sits behind this, or choosing not to let it do that. And so this is the benefit of the paid version, because now your data is not going to be used to improve their models. If you don't tick that, if you don't untick that, they're going to use your data to train the large language model. So if you're conscious or if you're cautious about whether your private data is going to be used, then it's probably best to keep that unticked so that they can't use that information. And now you can start using this GPT. So what kind of questions am I going to ask it? Let's actually go in and ask it a question. So I'm going to say, I am a financial accountant. I'll just say I'm a management accountant in a small business. I'll say small retail business with say 50 staff. 50 is not really that small, but let's say a retail business with 50 staff. What do I need to do over the next 2 years to prepare for the sustainability standards? Provide a detailed checklist. So now I'm giving it a scenario. It's already got a structure to work with, and it's now going to give me, all right, this is what you need to do as a small business. Understand the standards, assign responsibilities around governance, it's giving me the step-by-step things that I need to do to prepare myself. Training and capacity building, stakeholder engagement, this is the kind of thing you'd effectively pay a consultant to prepare for you, but now you have it available here. And within that 2-year timeline, this is what you need to do. Now you could even ask it, what disclosures do I need to prepare? And it's going to tell you whether you are excluded or whether you are included. And so what's the level of disclosure you as a retail business, what would be required of you? And so I've basically now found a way to deal with the sustainability standards, ask it enough questions, and it'll always keep feeding me answers. And the more detailed I get with my prompts, with the structure that I give the expert, the more useful the answers are going to be. Now, similarly, it's important to understand when you're using something like ChatGPT, the most important item is what they say right at the bottom. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. And that means never take what you read here as gospel. Instead, you always check to make sure that is accurate before you present anything. That is absolutely crucial, especially when you're using all the GPTs that are available within ChatGPT as well to use. So they have all these different types of GPTs available. like, writing, research and analysis, specific GPTs, lifestyle programming. So there's one specifically called accounting GPT, where you can ask it very specific accounting questions. If I go and ask the same question from the accounting GPT, chances are I'll get a similar answer. So, for example, before I asked the accounting GPT the question of, give me a detailed checklist of action items. My accounting department has 3-star total for the same thing, for the same sustainability standards question. And so it gave me this, saying, all right, here's what you need to do. Environmental action items, this is what you need to do. You need to start collecting energy management data, waste management, water usage, carbon footprint. You need to start doing the same for social action. So E, S, and G. So it's going through E, S, and G and telling me what data I need to start collecting. That level of detail, that level, and it's also a checklist. So I know to keep track of this now as well. So it's basically making your policy process a lot easier as well. Processes more standardized as well. So that was an example of interpreting accounting standards using a GPT. Now let's look at something like predictive cash forecasting and what your role will be as an accountant. And I'll also show a couple of the natural language analytics capabilities within analytics tools as well. Now, I'm going to show you, I bring this screen over here, you should be able to see it. Now, this is what you call a finance system, an ERP system. This is a persona called Hayden. This is basically what your everyday work would look like in terms of what you would do within a finance system. You will have certain insights that stands out to you, certain news and announcements. Now, this is a fitness equipments business. And so they have certain, financial metrics that they need to keep track of. But let's focus on a very specific AI use case. So in this case, let's look at cash forecasting. I'm showing you a scenario where a person does not create a cash forecast. The cash forecast is a rolling forecast that is prepared based on all of the banks that are connected to your ERP system. But because it is connected, you now have the ability to use the AI, the traditional AI, the machine learning capabilities and the AI within the solution to track week by week, what are your inflows, what are your outflows, and based on that, where is your cash surplus going to happen and this is now using predictive analytics. This is looking at a rolling 13-week cash balance based on the bank transactions that are happening across all of your bank statements, across all of your bank files. Now, the important bit is, yes, all of this is automated now, but the important bit is this statement that the AI is making for you, saying your collections, your customer collections is 15.7% more than previously predicted, which means at a certain point, you're going to start collecting more than you previously predicted. And that is important because now you need to know what to do with this information. You need to know what to do with it. But you don't have to trust it just because you see it. You need to view that forecast and see how it's making that calculation. And now what you're looking at is a full-blown cash flow forecast. So this is your week by week cash flow forecast. Here's your opening balance. Here's your cash inflows. Here's your cash outflows. Here's your net, operating activities, net investing activities, net financing activities. This is your standard cash flow. Now it's pulling information from all the different banks you might be working with across, if you've got different, lines of business across different countries. It's pulling from all of that. But the important thing is it's highlighting to you, focus on that one figure. That figure is more than what was expected before. And that is where that prediction is coming from. And that is where it's telling to you the customer collection is 15.7% more than previously predicted. And that is a lot of cash that you're going to now see. Now, as an accountant, you'll wonder, okay, if the cash flow is already prepared, if the analysis is already done, what's my job as the accountant? And that is where the job changes. As the accountant, your job now is to make sure whether that prediction is accurate. And so now you need to look at the prediction details and see where is that prediction coming from? What information is being collected for that prediction to happen? How accurate is the machine learning capabilities within the solution? Would you trust an 84% absolute mean percentage? What's the error rate over time? How wrong has it been before? How accurate is it now? what other, where is this money coming from? What actual customers are giving you this money? And so doing all of that analysis now starts to become your job as an accountant. So this is, now I'm talking about that future where the role in of itself starts to change. Because yes, you know what a cash flow statement is. Yes, you know how to prepare it. But now you will spend more time analyzing the data sitting behind the cash flow statement and the predictions made in that cash flow statement by the AI than you would actually preparing the cash flow statement. And so it's important to understand where these tools are headed in that regard. I'll show you another example of how generative AI, how AI is used in analytics. So here's a use case of now this is a data visualization platform that we use within Oracle. So similar to Power BI, think of it like another data visualization platform, what we call Oracle Analytics. And what you'll see in front of you is now all of this, a nice data visualization dashboard that's tracking your revenue, your operating expenses, your operating expenditure budget. Now, historically, what you would spend a lot of time on is doing this analysis. All right, I can see from August, the budget to actuals the operating expenditure actuals versus budget is off. And that is what you will write here as a narrative. And you might make certain highlights, you might make this is your job as an accountant, right? So basically, all right, services is obviously spending too much. The service department is spending too much. That's what you write as a commentary. But now that will also change because once you feed AI and machine learning capabilities into a data visualization tool, you don't need to write the narrative anymore. Instead, the AI will write the narrative for you. So notice what happens to the commentary when I click on service and filter just the service department. The narrative will change automatically and the dashboard will change automatically as well, but the narrative changed. The point there being, you don't have to worry about the narration anymore. What you need to now start worrying about is the decision that sits behind the narration. So what does it mean that services is spending this much? What do I need to do now? Understand where that cost is coming from. So now I'm going to drill further into that services department, see how much are they spending? Where are they spending this money? Their overtime is increasing. All right, what does that mean for me? How many people have come and gone from the services department? Oh my God, services is actually hiring a lot, but also firing a lot. So clearly there's a problem there. So you start doing more of that analysis instead of doing the actual assessment in the first place because the AI has done it. Now, let's take it one step further. Imagine a scenario where you are told to prepare this report and you don't know where to start because there's so much data. You can even, so if you were to start with a complete blank canvas, you don't know where to go. You have the data, but you don't know how to start. There's all these visualization tools available, but you don't know where to start. You can even use AI to look at the data, and these are now embedded AI tools within visualization platforms where it's going to suggest to you, maybe these are the types of reports you want to prepare. So all of these reports now are being prepared by the AI and the machine learning algorithms sitting behind it, saying, here are the types, based on the data that you're asking me to read, these are the reports you can prepare. You can prepare a split of cost center, you can prepare index metric growths. You don't need to be a data scientist. It'll explain to you what's in front of you. It'll explain to you, what that data is representing, but all of that reporting is available to you without you having to make that much of an effort preparing the report. Instead, what will you do? You'll spend more time analyzing the report. You'll want to understand what's causing those anomalies. How do you then act on those anomalies? That is more important for you now to understand. So that's where it goes back to the skills matrix that I showed before. That's why critical thinking is more important than actually some of the software engineering skills that sat below. So that was just a quick example to show, all right, so now I've got all of this information, or I've got all of these reports. All I literally need to do is pull them into my new dashboard. It's even done a forecast for me. So for example, in this case, if I pull this report onto that dashboard, let's see, my internet's crashing, just give me, oh, there we go. You'll see now you're able to analyze this information. It's even telling you what that information is based on the categories of data that it's feeding from. All right, now with that, I'll jump back just to the slides, just in the interest of time. There are so many use cases like this. I just showed you two very quick ones, one around predictive cash forecasting and another around natural language analytics. I'll share these slides afterwards. Just go on Google and search these terms, see what comes up, and you'll see what those use cases are. And then you'll start to see how you can start adopting some of them. There's plenty of generative AI use cases around accounting and business partnering. How do you prepare reports faster? How do you write reports faster? I just showed you one before with natural language. Predictive cash forecasting that I showed before, writing prompts better becomes more important. I'll quickly step through some of these because these are all different use cases, which we don't have the time for. But keep in mind, the most important thing when you're writing those prompts, especially on something like ChatGPT, follow these steps. Make sure it's clear. Make sure you give it a persona or you give it an action, give it context. Make sure, if you want to make it even more specific, give it examples. Make sure to include keywords and tone as well, because then you get the best outcome out of the GPT that you're using. So an effective prompt should have at least 3 to 4 of these elements in it. You'll see in most of the examples that I showed to you before with ChatGPT as well, I tell it what it is. You are a sustainability expert. You are an expert on accounting standards. Giving that context, giving that persona and giving that context helps the GPT answer it better, because then it's going to go look at that set of data that sits within its large language model. When you do look at using AI within a business, and if you are part of transformations, you need to start by asking the first question is, what data do you need? Because if you don't have the data, it's not going to matter. So you start with the data, and then you look at, all right, what type of data do I need as an accountant? I need the finance data, I need the sales data, I need the HR data, because if there's expenses attached to it, then I need to worry about that. And then you look at use cases like, all right, what's the problem that I'm trying to resolve? And then you look at what's the benefit that I want to get out of it. And then you focus on what's the technology you use. Whether you use ChatGPT or whether you use a different AI tool is the last question you ask. The first 3 is more important, is what's the data, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and what outcome do you want? If you don't have clear answers for those 3, you shouldn't start that process using AI. With that, and so there are common applications as well, things like risk prediction, on-time payment prediction, intelligent document recognition as well. So for example, if I was to show you another software really quickly, let's say you're using a chatbot and you want to load it with an expense. Creating that expense is as simple as, telling your chatbot. So this is when you're trying to reimburse an expense from your company. You've made a personal expenditure and you need to reimburse it back from your company. Now you don't need to even type anything anymore. Instead, you just go straight into your, if you've taken a picture of the receipt of what you purchased, it's as simple as, let's go into pictures. I've got a receipt of, say, what I purchased. So, I bought a coffee at a coffee shop. I literally just upload that picture. That's all I need to do. I don't need to worry about writing anything, typing anything into my finance system. Instead, it's the system's going to read the document. It's taken optical character recognition, paired it with AI, and gone, all right, that receipt said $20.70 AUD on the 15th of August. It's the type of expenditure is breakfast based on what is there. Where was it? You paid it with your corporate card. Everything is there. And now the power of AI is, let's say I create it, and let's say I've already done this in the system before. It will pick up whether this is a duplicate, and it will say, hang on a minute, you've actually already created this expense file before. You shouldn't be doing this again. And so that level of complexity exists within. It's no longer just a repeated task. It's no longer just a robotic process automation. It's not an RPA anymore. It's not just doing it because you asked to do it. Instead, it's telling you, let me check one thing. I see you filed an expense for $20.70 on the 10th of September for the same record. Are you sure you want to create this expense? So it's having a conversation with me now. It's telling me, you've already done this. Don't duplicate it. Because if you duplicate it, now someone else is going to have to adjust it later on. So having that level of complexity within even your chatbots is possible if AI is built in. Softwares nowadays, that's where it's going. So you need to be aware of how to use it for your advantage as well. Different industries have different use cases. Retail, oil and gas, banking, telcos, they all have different use cases that they apply. Some are very specific, like, for example, fraud analytics. So, for example, hospitals use hospital staff scheduling using AI. So there are use cases that go well beyond the use cases of an accountant or a finance professional. The last thing I'll end on, and this is a bit scary, but something to be aware of. Now the technology companies are building AI agents. And so what's an AI agent? It's take ChatGPT, take a generative AI large language model, and give it actionable tasks. It's not just giving you ideas or text, it's actually going to take action in the background as well. So what that leads to is the prompt you give it will now be something like, book me a flight to wherever. And it'll understand the prompt, it'll go into your software, it'll retrieve the data as necessary, and it'll actually execute. It'll actually go into your flight booking system and make a booking for you and say your flight has been booked. Those types of agents.
This demo shows how
Stop that. These types of agents are coming out more and more, and we are using it. We are seeing it in a lot of different use cases. For example, in this case, it's, say, a Japanese accounts payable invoice. You can't read it because it's in Japanese. So what do? You take a picture of it and you send it to your AI agent, which is now able to read Japanese. And so because of that, it's going to take the information that you feed it. So you're just, feeding that information in. I'm just going to skip through this video. It's basically going to interpret what's said into English, put the amount, put the currency, put the account code into and create an accounts payable invoice for you. And that is now your record that sits in your accounts payable department. Now, all of that work gets done without you having to touch the system. And at the end of it, even let's say you're happy with what's happened, you want to approve payment, the AI agent is able to do that as well. I'm jumping through some of these really quick, but I just wanted to show you how developed that iteration is becoming, because AI agents, and this is just the company that I work in, everyone's starting to produce these. You should look at some of these left-hand agents that are being created. So a payments agent that I just showed before, there could be a ledger agent, a document agent, an accounts reconciliation agent. So you need to start thinking about how you can use these to make your life easier, especially in the transactional work that you do. The things to still keep in mind is there's always going to be data security concerns, there's human oversight concerns, embedded end-to-end workflows, and continuous improvement that you need to factor in. And along with that, it's important to understand, I'll just jump a couple of others as well. There's always going to be a struggle between businesses building their own AI and just buying AI from a technology provider. They both have their benefits. Some are cost benefits, some are control, but depending on what type of strategy you take, the important thing is the business issue. And that's why I keep saying the tool should be the last thing you worry about. You first need to worry about whether you have the data, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and what's the outcome you expect. If you don't have clear answers for those three, don't pick anything to do with AI for that problem. I will, so along with that, just a couple of few items just to kind of end on as what can you do today? Keep up to date. There's plenty of newsletters that release what's the latest thing happening in AI. Don't reinvent the wheel. Look at what's already out there. So for example, those GPTs, chances are there's a GPT that could do it for you. Set an AI strategy, set your policies. Skills development is very important. There's plenty of information out on YouTube. There's lots of free training courses as well, especially to learn how to create prompts. That's very important, and set clear measures for success. And so with that, I'll probably stop sharing and take any questions that might be there. I think we're almost at time already, aren't we?
No, 4:30. No, it's okay. We can go through. Shall we take the Q&A?
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah.
Some of these I may have answered while we went through it, so let's see whether there's anything. When it comes to students in accounting professionals, we could see many using AI for their studies. The students' analytical skills are poor due to solely relying on AI tools in their studies. Sometimes it can be seen that students are trying to answer for case-based general questions. All right. So basically, I'm guessing that's a question from an academic who's saying students are using AI tools for their studies. And so because of that, the analytical skills that the students have are getting poorer and poorer. So sometimes it can be seen that the students were trying to answer the case, answer for case-based questions in general. And so how do you resolve that? Now, my answer to that question is going to be a little controversial. Firstly, you can't stop the student using the AI tool. That's not going to happen. But you can change the way you ask the question. So what we are seeing a lot in universities, especially in Australia, is they're changing how the question is asked. So the assignment question that they give to the student, let's take an accounting example, you might give them a case study, or you might give them, let's say, a management question, explain, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how it applies to management. Or you might say, explain the SWOT analysis concept and how it applies to management. That question now needs to change to you going into ChatGPT, putting in a prompt, getting an answer, which is a ChatGPT answer of SWOT analysis, then giving that to the student and saying, this is the answer from ChatGPT. This is only 40% accurate. Explain to us why it is 60% inaccurate. And so you're not saying to the student that this is now correct. You're basically flipping the way that the student has to answer the question. So now the student now needs to read the whole thing, compare that against what you have taught them. You don't have to be as blunt as saying it's the SWOT analysis, but now you're changing the way that question is asked. And so it's the same thing as when the laptop when the laptop was introduced, that changed the way you asked the question, that changed the way you looked at questioning and assignments. Same thing has to happen with ChatGPT. Use ChatGPT to answer your to ask your question. In the same way, get the students used to disclosing when they've used ChatGPT, because irrespective of whether they give you the right answer or not, disclosing whether an AI has been used is more important than the answer itself, because then that changes the behavior, that changes the way they look at the analysis in of itself as well. Let's see a few other questions. Perplexity is better AI platform than ChatGPT, which will give more references and readings to subject areas. Yep. I mean, every tool has their own benefits. I use ChatGPT today just because that's the most commonly known one. with every tool, though, you need to be careful that you don't feed it private information, personalized information, and if you're using the free version, to set those guardrails in place. Especially if you're looking at, I mean, for your personal use, it's fine, but the moment you start entering company data, other people's data, you need to be more careful. All right, let's keep going. There's a couple of some of these questions I think we've answered already. Is there any certification of prompt engineering which is highly recognized? Yes and no. There's a lot of certification out there for prompt engineering. At this stage, though, don't focus on the certification, focus on the use case more, especially around prompt engineering, because it's very fluid. It'll continue to change. What you'll start seeing is everything you learn as a course, everything like even your core subject matter expertise, may it be accounting, may it be management, may it be your standard soft skills, they'll incorporate things like prompt engineering into it. So you don't have to, unless you're going after an IT specific role, you don't have to be certified in prompt engineering, but you need to know how to show it. There's also a lot of free courses if you are interested in that regard as well. AI created images subject to copyright and intellectual property laws. That's a very good question. It depends on the jurisdiction you're in as well. If you're in a jurisdiction that hasn't reached that level of legislation yet, no. From what I see, it rides more on the disclosure of whether you used AI or not, as opposed to what the actual IP at the end is. So they're focusing more on disclosing whether AI has been used so that the audience is aware whether it's AI infused or not. Best websites or institutes to learn more on AI. There's plenty of them. I mean, you don't need to spend money on it. YouTube alone will give you so much. There are newsletters that are pretty good as well. One I follow is called Neuron, I think. Neuron AI newsletter. If you just Google the Neuron Daily, it'll come up. I mean, it gives you a daily newsletter on what's happening in AI, what are the new tools that are coming out. It's actually pretty good to keep track of what are the new things that are coming out. What are the potential risks of AI surpassing human intelligence, and how can this be mitigated? At this stage, artificial intelligence has already surpassed human intelligence, but it's pointless if no one knows how to use it properly. So that is where it does. So by the same logic, a computer has surpassed human intelligence because it can compute things a lot faster than we can. What's more important is the use cases it is applied to and the guardrails that are put around it. Because without that, it's very difficult. It's a tool for the sake of it being a tool. Is 50 plus finance AI agents included in Microsoft Dynamics 365? I'm not sure. Microsoft is a competitor of Oracle. So from where I sit, I don't know. The AI agents that I was talking about are all to do with Oracle. But every technology company is building AI agents in this process. How can AI enhance the accuracy and efficiency of financial audits, and what are the risks involved? So there's a concept, especially around financial audits, where AI is being leveraged in internal audits for risk management. So basically, you take AI and then you take your entire risk register and you feed your risk register through AI and you embed it within your finance system. So now you effectively don't do internal audits anymore on samples. Instead, the AI is checking every transaction 24/7 and every access point all the time. So it kind of removes the internal audit function a little, but replaces it with internal auditors who need to control the risk management tool built in with AI. So in that case, once again, is an internal auditor being replaced? No. The internal auditor now just needs to learn risk management software with AI built in. Can you suggest other reliable AI tools other than ChatGPT? My best answer for that is you guys already suggested a whole bunch of tools. they are clearly working in the market, and so you should check some of those out as well. I'm just going through some of the other questions. I'm interested in the research area of AI and fraud risk management. Can you please elaborate further for future research directions? Plenty of information on that. Just in the interest of time, I don't think we have the time to go through it, but especially around risk management, I think I skipped over that slide really quickly. We see it especially around financial crimes in financial services industry, anti-money laundering, insurance claim fraud prediction. Especially around property insurance and health insurance, we see a lot of AI and fraud risk management being put together. So basically, you take your risk register again, you take AI and you feed it these scenarios, and you leverage all of your transactional data to see where there might be anomalies. Best way to research that would actually be to speak to companies working in financial services sector, because for them it's a real life scenario and they are using technology to cater to that problem already. Especially for research functions, best place to start would be talking to banks, talking to insurance companies, and finding out how they're dealing with the problem. Because they would give you plenty of food for thought. Does AI reduce human intervention? Is AI a substitute for automation? Yes and yes. AI does reduce human intervention. AI is a substitute for automation, but keep in mind they're both useless without the human in the loop. Because I work with AI on a day-to-day basis. I will never give my supervisor or manager something that AI has given me without reviewing it, because I won't trust it. And so you need to always make sure you're the human in the loop. It will save you 2 hours of time writing the report, but you shouldn't be complacent enough not to read that report for the next 10 minutes and make sure everything in it is accurate and everything is what you want it to convey. Because without that, it's a tool that's serving a purpose. And if you also, even at the end of it, if I'm giving a report like that to my manager, I'm going to disclose this was written with the assistance of AI, because I need my manager to be aware of that as well. And so that's going to change the way he looks at the same report as well. And he's going to look at it from a different lens to if I didn't say that. That disclosure will be the linchpin moving forward, because everyone needs to use it, but everyone needs to be honest about how they're using it, because without that, there's going to be a lot of legislational issues that will come up into the future. What are the challenges of implementing AI solutions in small and medium-sized accounting firms compared to large enterprises? It's very simple. The cleanliness of data and the costs attached therewith. Those are the two main reasons why small to medium-sized enterprises struggle with AI, because you don't always have a clear platform of clean data. If that's the case, you spend more time actually cleaning the data than actually using the AI. And that tends to be quite an expensive process if you don't have someone in-house who knows what they're doing. All right, I think that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, just one question that I have. Now the government is really trying to digitize all the government institutions. How do you think now AI would be able to support this, or can it be a substitute, or what is the way that it could support or assist this area?
Yes, it can, provided that. So the question there should be, in my opinion, before you look at whether you can use AI, it's to look at whether we have the right building blocks in place. So that it comes back to the fact that you will only see and use AI in that application block. But in order for that to exist, you need that to be clear and you need the infrastructure to be clear. So if the question is, can the government digitize using AI? Absolutely, yes, provided it invests in making sure there's the right infrastructure and making sure there's enough avenues for people to use data accurately, well, and efficiently in a safe manner. So there needs to be guardrails built around that. And obviously, encompassing all of this are the guardrails around AI as well.
But
So
for
if
the
you
normal operations, you will have to digitize and then have the systems working, isn't it?
exactly. So if you don't digitize it, you don't have data. Instead, it's on paper, right? And in order for you to digitize it, you need the right infrastructure. You need to have the compute power and the cables and the right level of data flowing through. Once you do those two, then using AI, that's the final step.
Right. So thank you very much, Mr. Kaushika. I think it was something that really kept maybe the audience on their toes, because starting from what you were doing and getting the answers and later talking on AI, because everyone is now talking on AI, of course, a lot of the accounting and of course management accountants, finance accountants, all of them are worried. Just one thing, how can it support the stock market? Will it have any sort of action or?
Yes, and there's a lot of, so especially in the financial services industry, they feed a lot of algorithms through AI GPTs as well. So it's not my area of expertise, but it's already happening, and it's been happening for years. So the financial services sector has been using algorithms based off of AI to make their determinations on where to invest, when to pull out, when to start investing more into tranches of funding. That is an area, once again, if the data is not well, you shouldn't even think about it, because if you don't have a consistently accurate pool of data, then the hallucinations will only increase.
Thank you very much. I must also congratulate you not only for your presentation made today, but also for being given the fellowship of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants. So we are very proud of you and to have you as a fellow member of our institute. And I'm sure that you'll be able to give more time for us and support us in all these, because every time that I ask something, you have been always coming immediately and then giving the answers. So thanks a lot. So I will now invite our CEO, Mr. Kosala Disanayak, to give the vote of thanks. Kosala, can you? You're muted, Kosala. Okay.
Sorry for that.
No.
Yes. Thank you very much for me to give this vote of thanks. I'm privileged to sort of speak few words regarding that, because this is an excellent opportunity that we had that learn about the AI, because we always talk about.
I think we lost most of them. Link.
Looks like it, because I think he had been.
Yeah, I think it's breaking up a little.
Yeah, okay.
That's all right. I think I just want to say
Yeah,
thanks as well, Professor Vatavalla, for
yeah,
the
yeah. Right.
Help to
Sorry,
do some of
Kosala, I
this.
think.
Yeah, I think the connection was breaking off.
Yeah. So once again, let me thank you, because really, I think everyone is today talking, so we have really gone it at the correct time, and you really agreed to give this talk. But maybe from the questions also, we can see that there are a lot of them who are asking this. And I think one of the complaints, in fact, one of our senior professors who is on our council, he always says that in the university, they give prompt answers, and when the answers are given, when they check back, they always find that it is from ChatGPT, and when they come for the interview, they are unable to answer it. So I suppose the good and the bad is there, and maybe the methodology is also available. So once again, thank you very much. I'm sure that we'll be in touch.
Yep.
And if you are coming to Sri Lanka, certainly we would like to maybe have a physical event
Yep.
where you can be present, like what we did at the annual conference.
Yep,
So,
sure. Thank you for that, and thank you for everyone who joined in. Hopefully, you got a few ideas on how to use AI a little better as well. If there's any questions, I'm always available on LinkedIn or via email, and happy to answer any questions in the future as well.
So thanks a lot. I think you have spent quite a lot of time. It must be quite late there. So I hope it's not too late. And let's keep in touch. And maybe if there are any questions, maybe we can forward to you so that you can then take a look and send it to us. So thanks a lot and wish you all the very best. And we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.